Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So welcome to Sri Sri Radha Govinda Temple. We are reading from Bhagavatam, but we are reading the Ramayana within it. Means Ram Katha is given in scattered way, different cantos. When it comes to Lord Rama, it describes the pastimes of Lord Rama. So based on Bhagavatam, we are reading this. But also Bhagavatam is guiding us towards the Valmiki Ramayana, and we will be also reading with the permission of Srila Prabhupada, because he is the one. He says this is authentic Ramayana, and someday I would love to translate it. Although he is not there, but based on his instructions, we can always read Valmiki Ramayana and learn more about Ramakatha. First, let's chant Srila Prabhupada's most favorite bhajan. Jaya Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari, Gopijan Vallabha Girivardhari, Gopijan Vallabha Girivardhari, Jashodanandan Vrajjanu Ranjan, Jashodanandan Vrajjanu Ranjan, Jamuna Tira Vanchari, Jamuna Tira Vanchari, Jaya Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari, Gopijan Vallabha Girivardhari, Gopijan Vallabha Girivardhari, Jashodanandan Vrajjanu Ranjan, Jashodanandan Vrajjanu Ranjan, Jamuna Tira Vanchari, Jamuna Tira Vanchari, Jaya Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Nikunjbihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupada Parama परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सदा भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवसदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। अंतर्विप मायापुर धाम की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, समावेद भक्त वृंद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंदे, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutare Shamte Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. नमस्ते सरस्वतीं गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी विशेषनिवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणी श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवसदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। I mentioned yesterday also, based on Srila Prabhupada's purports, as well as from Srimad Bhagavatam, quoting from a verse. And that verse was, Tasyanu charitam rajan rushibi tattvadarshibhi shrutam hi varnitam bhuri Tvaya Sita Patermuhu. Translation by His Divine Grace. O King Parikshit, the transcendental activities of Lord Ramachandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Because you have heard again and again about Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Mother Sita, I shall describe these activities only in brief. Please listen. So, it is like when you are driving and coming to some traffic circle, there may be a person who is diverting the traffic, and if you are going to go straight ahead, he will guide you that way. If you are going to divert other way, then right or left, he will give a signal. And also, if it is automatic, it can be done through lights also. So here, Srila Prabhupada says that these are the warning signs that Shukadeva Goswami says. That although so many people have written about Srimad Ramachandra, but the thing is that some books are not called authentic. The writers, Prabhupada says, not the books of so-called scholars who claim knowledge only on the basis of doctorate. This is a warning sign by Shukadeva Goswami. That's why using the word Rishibihi Tattva, Darshibihi. Although the Ramayana composed by Valmiki is a huge literature, the same activities are summarized here by Shukadeva Goswami in a few verses. So, Srila Prabhupada says it is okay. If you want to know a little bit about Ram Katha, then Bhagavatam is enough. But if you want to go into detail, Shukadeva Goswami also directing us to go into Ramacharita, what you call Ramayana, Adhyatmika Ramayana, or Valmiki Ramayana. Sometimes in Puranas also there are 5 Smritis which are covering Ramayana, and they are also authentic and because it's written by Maharshi Vedvyas. So what we will do that today we will come back to Bhagavatam, but meanwhile let's see those resages who have given us the Ramayana and different scriptures, what they have to say about. So let's pray and start reading. Jhāye nityam mahesham rajatgirinibam charuchandravatansam ratnakalpo ujvalangam parashumrugavarabhiti hastam prasannam padmasinam samantastutama amaraganervyagrikrutim vasanam vishvajam vishvavanyam nikhilabhayaram panchavaktram trinetram aprameya trayatita nirmala gnanamurte manogira viduraya dakshinamurtaye namah kadachinnarado yogi paranugrahakankshaya paryatan sakalan lokan martyalokamupagat. So he says that on the bank of Tamasa river, a sage named Valmiki used to live. One day, after visiting the entire planetary system, and what's that entire planetary system? 14 lokas. Tal, Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Patal, Rasatal. And then again, Satya, Tap, Jan, Mahar, Swarga, Bhurlok, and finally ends up in the Martyaloka. And his desire is to see Valmiki Rishi. So Narada happened to visit him. And after offering proper respects, Tadviddi pranipatena pariprashtena sevaya upadekshanti gnani tattvanadarshinaha. He is asking very humbly, very simple question. And based on that question, the answer is Ramayana. He is asking a question to Narad Muni. Kono asmin sampramattaloke gunavana kasya cha viryavana dharmakasya krutagnasya dradavrato. The question is more complicated than we think because it's difficult to answer. Maharshi says, O Narad Ruchi, for quite some time now, I wonder if there is in this world of man a single individual, a man blessed with all the many good qualities which one can think of. Just like some kind of shopping mall. If you want a needle, you get it. And if you want a rifle, you get it. Anything you can think of, in that mall, everything is there. Similarly, one human body, but all the good qualities that you can think of, is there any man on this earth like that? That was the question. And Narada asked, tell me what these qualities are, and I will try and tell you if there is one endowed with all of them, and thus satisfy your curiosity. He says, you have to tell me what qualities you are looking for in a man, then I can think of you. Valmiki says, integrity, bravery, righteousness, gratitude, truthfulness, dedication to one's principles, character without blemish, concern for all living beings, learning skills, beauty, a pleasing appearance, courage, radiance, ability to keep anger under control, perfect control, a lack of jealousy at all times, undaunted heroism which can frighten even the celestials. Valmiki paused for a while, and all these many qualities, and then he said with a smile, I know I'm expecting perfection in a human being, but I wonder if there is such person. Is it possible for a single man to have all these qualities? Says Narada, who knew the past, present, and the future, was very pleased with quest of Valmiki, and he replied, listen to me carefully. I happen to know of such a man. So next he is introducing Lord Rama. And he says, in the line of Ikshvaku, there is a king by name Rama. He is the man you are looking for. In prowess, he is like Narayana, and he is as pleasing to the sight as the moon, patient like Mother Earth. He is generous like Kuvera. He is like Dharma, the Lord of righteousness in truthfulness. And in short, he is a paragon of all the virtues which adorn a human being. So he is beginning with this, and then he is reciting 100 verses which is a separate Ramayana. And that's Ramayana is by Narad Rishi. Formerly, it was narrated to Narad Rishi by Lord Brahma. Formerly, it was narrated to Brahma by Lord Krishna himself. But only 100 verses. And now, having recounted the story of Rama to Valmiki, Narad took leave of him and went away from his ashram. After the departure of Narada, Valmiki was sitting quiet for a while, thinking on the glorious personage Rama, and his mind was dwelling on Rama. So he could not think of anything but Lord Rama. Finally, he sees that his room is full of glow, effulgence, light all over. And that was Lord Brahma was visiting him. And he is asking him to compose a great poem called Valmiki Ramayana. So let's see. Narada's pastimes we already checked. And now it says, one day Lord Brahma, firstborn of this universe, went to visit the great sage Valmiki at his ashram. Valmiki was discussing the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with some of his disciples. And when Brahma appeared, they offered him an elevated seat and worshipped him according to the Vedic scriptures. Then Valmiki stood before Brahma with hands joined in prayer, and Brahma requested that he sit down. All blessings upon you, O great seer, Brahma said. I want you to describe the entire life of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra, as you have heard it from the lips of sage Narada. For the world's welfare, write down whatever you know about Lord Ramachandra, Lakshman and Sita. For surely, O Valmiki, your description will be true. Please render their sacred story into select verse for everyone's purification. As long as mountains and rivers remain on this earth, the theme of Ramayana will be sung in all three worlds. After saying this, Lord Brahma ascended his swan carrier and flew away to his planet Satyaloka, abode of demigods. Following Brahma's instructions, Valmiki wrote down 24,000 verses describing the pastimes, activities, paraphernalia, entourage, and holy names of Lord Ramachandra. This story, entitled the Ramayana, consists of 7 cantos and over 500 cantos. One day, when Valmiki wondered what man could possibly recite the epic, his 2 disciples, Kush and Love, appeared before him. They offered obeisances to their guru, touching his feet respectively. Kush and Love were talented with fine memories and musical abilities. Moreover, they were well versed in the Vedas. Physically, the 2 boys were exact replica of their father, and musically, they were as talented as the heavenly Gandharvas. Therefore, Valmiki decided to teach them the great poem, seeing that they were competent to transmit it. In due course, Kush and Love committed the entire text to memory. Following Valmiki's instructions, they chanted Lord Rama's wonderful pastimes before great sages, learned brahmanas, and other pious men, pure in heart. That is the nature of great, magnanimous souls, being very kind towards everyone and desiring their welfare. They bestow the greatest of gifts, transcendent knowledge by describing the Lord's glories, since these descriptions immediately counteracts all material distress. They satisfy all who hear them. The Lord himself is satisfied by such great souls, and he declares that no one can be more dear to him than one who chants his glories for the benefit of all. One day, when Kusha and Love were chanting Ramayana through streets of Ayodhya, Lord Ramchandra himself happened to hear them. Although they were his sons, he did not recognize them because they were been raised by Valmiki and were dressed as ascetic, being attracted by their recitation. He took them to his palace and offered them an exalted seat before family members, learned sages, priests, and princes. All based of King Raghu's dynasty, he said. Please listen to this wonderful narration. Although these two singers appear like ascetics, they possess the auspicious marks of great rulers. Listen to this story because it is full of literary beauty and has universal appeal. Thus encouraged by their celebrated father, Kush and Love began to recite pastimes of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra. This entire earth has been the exclusively property of victorious kings. Beginning with Vaivasvata Manu, they began this great history. Ramayana has its seeds in that saintly dynasty. Now we shall sing this divine narration from the beginning. Those who are pure in heart, as well as those desiring purity, should listen carefully. After proclaiming the spiritual potencies of great Ramayana, Kush and Love began its narration. So this is what happened that Brahma wrote it. But there was no one to memorize 24,000 verses of Valmiki Ramayana. But Love and Kush, none other than sons of Lord Ramachandra, were able to recite that and able to present it in a melodious way by singing the whole Ramayana. So here it says, Yoti brastoti papi paradana paradareshu nityo dato steyi brahmagnamata pitruvadhanirato yogi vrundapakari. Dhanyasme gruhitasmi कृतार्थास्मि जगत प्रभो विछिन्नो मैं अति संदेह ग्रंथिर्ब्रवदनुग्रहता. देवाश्च सर्वे हरिरूपधारिणः स्थिता सहार्थात् मितसत्तो हरेहि महाबला पर्वतवृक्षयोधिनः प्रतीक्ष्यमाणा भगवन्तमीश्वर. अथ राजा दशरथः श्रीमान् सत्यपरायण अयोध्याधिपतिर्वीर सर्वलोकेषु विश्रुता. So sometimes the books do not give the Sanskrit version, So I have to refer other book. So now he starts talking about Ayodhya and his grandfather Dashrath. Once in this great city lived a king named Dashrath, who ruled the entire earth. Being pious and well versed in the Vedas, Dashrath knew that rendering service to God is the main purpose of life. Because of his great devotion to Vishnu, he possessed all good qualities and was loved by his people. As a great chariot fighter of the Ikshvaku dynasty, he could battle thousands of warriors at a time. He was renowned as a sage among kings, and he often made sacrifices for Lord Vishnu's pleasure. Strong and without enemies, he enjoyed a good reputation not only here but throughout the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. Now, this is a news for you. King Dashrath had 350 wives. Normally, what happens that, if they have some selection among wives, then their names appear all over the scripture. So Kaushalya, Kaikeyi and Sumitra, everyone know about that. But he had actually total 350 wives. But how many children he had? He had only one child, and that was a daughter, and her name was Shanta. And she was adopted by a sage named Romapada. So here it says, King Dashrath had 350 wives, of which 3 were prominent, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi and Sumitra. Despite all his wives, King Dashrath had only one child, a girl named Santa, who had been adopted by the childless king, Romapada. Being elderly and desiring a son, King Dashrath gathered all his counselors and told them of his concerns. There is no happiness in my life, he said. For all these years, I have wanted a son. Would you please make a proper arrangements so that we can perform a Putreshti fire yagna, and please Lord Vishnu. Yes, I shall make arrangements for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu. Vasishtha Muni assured the king to gather material necessary for the fire sacrifice. The sage went to northern bank of the river Saryu and is bringing son-in-law of Dashrath, whose name was Rishyasringa. And king told him that in Ayodhya, King Dashrath humbly told his son-in-law, please do what is necessary to continue the dynasty of Ikshvaku. Rishyasringa says, I will perform a sacrifice by which 4 sons will be born to you, who although young was well known as a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. Rishyasringa, in this way, he said, your dynasty will be sustained. Rishyasringa then made preparation. When everything was ready, he sat on a holy seat made of kusha grass, and following the Vedic rituals, poured oblations into fire sacrifice. As the sacrifice proceeded, Lord Brahma and other demigods personally appeared to accept their portions. So we already saw that he was not an ordinary person. He was a great priest. And here it says that he was well known as a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. The sage Rishyashringa completed the Putreshti sacrifice, and King Dashrath gave half of the Lord Vishnu's prasadam, the holy sacrificial food, to his wife Kaushalya, and the other half to his wife Kaikeyi and Sumitra. After the sacrifice, Lord Brahma spoke to demigods, please beget partial manifestations of yourself within the wombs of monkeys. This progeny should equal you in strength, be well versed in Vedic literature, and endowed with all mystic powers. They should be very intelligent, swift, and expert in warfare. They will assist Lord Vishnu in killing chief of the Rakshasas, Ravan, as well as his followers. After hearing this, all the demigods, rishis and sages begot thousands of heroic monkeys for the purpose of aiding Lord Vishnu. So, all the demigods and the chief of demigods, Indra, Vivasvan, Brihaspati, Kubera, Vishwakarma, Agni, Ashwini Kumar, Varuna, Parjanya, and wind god Vayu, they all are ready for that project. So after hearing this, all the demigods, rishis, sages begot thousands of heroic monkeys for the purpose of aiding Lord Vishnu. Lord Indra, the chief of demigods, begot Vali. From Indra came Vali, who equalled him in strength. The sun god Vivasvan begot Sugriva. So Sugriva was none other than Vivasvan, the younger brother of Vali. The great sage Brihaspati, spiritual master of demigods, begot mighty monkey Tara, who was most intelligent. Kubera, the lord of wealth, begot monkey Gandhamandana. And Vishwakarma, the architect of the demigods, begot the powerful monkey named Nala. And the fire god Agni begot glorious and valiant Nila. The rich and beautiful Ashwini Kumar begot monkey Mainda and Dvivida. Varuna, the demigod of water, begot monkey Sushena. And Parjanya, the god of rain, begot Sarabha. And the wind god Vayu begot Hanuman. Of all the monkeys, Hanuman was the strongest and most intelligent. He could withstand the force of a thunderbolt, and he was as swift as Lord Vishnu himself. The principal Apsaras, Vidyadhara women, wives of Nagas and Gandharvas, also gave birth to children in the form of monkeys, endowed with gigantic bodies and mystic powers. Each monkey had the strength of thousands of elephants. With their arms alone, the monkeys could uproot gigantic trees and throw huge rocks with great force. They all had extremely sharp teeth and claws, capable of tearing out the heart of any Rakshasa. In fact, they could agitate the sea with their great strength and pulverize the earth simply by walking. Their legs were so powerful that they could leap great distances and jump as high as the clouds. Their hands were so strong that they could seize elephants, and their roaring was so great that it could knock birds from the sky. Moreover, these monkeys could assume any form at will. I wish you have some young generation who are listening to this. Even a great movie maker, all these things that I'm reading is beyond the imagination. There is no way you can even put it on a script or on a film. Beautiful. Living in mountains and forests, they sought the protection of the chiefs, Some monkeys followed Vali and Sugriva, whereas others followed Nala, Nila, Hanuman, and other leaders. All the monkeys, however, considered Vali their king and lord. The monkey chiefs were so great that they looked like massive clouds covering the peaks of mountains. Indeed, they were given the gigantic bodies just to assist Lord Ramachandra. After the successful yagna, directed by sage Rishyasringa, King Dashrath dwelt joyfully in his capital. His principal wives were pregnant, having partaken all the Vishnu Prasadam from the sacrifice, and they appeared more effulgent than the sun. Feeling greatly satisfied, the king waited for Supreme Lord himself to take birth as his son. एवं परात्मा मनुजावतारो मनुष्यलोकाननुसृत्य सर्वं चक्रे विकारी परिणामहीनो विचार्यमाणेन करोति किंचित्. कदाचित् कौशिकोऽभ्याज्ञा अयोध्यात्वनलप्रभ द्रष्टुं रामं परमात्मानं जातं ज्ञात्वा समायया. A full year after the sacrifice, when the star Punarvasu was ascending the sun, was in Aries. Listen, because I am going to explain this in little detail on my own. A full year after sacrifice, when the star Punarvasu was ascending, the sun was in Aries, Mars was in Capricorn, Saturn was in Libra, Jupiter was in Cancer, and the moon was in Pisces. The eldest of Dashrath queen, Kaushalya, gave birth to Lord Rama. Bolo Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai. Who was the Lord of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Lord Sri Vishnu. So as you know, this is self-explanatory, that the sun was in Aries, the Mars was in Capricorn, and Saturn was in Libra and all that. But I actually try to plot this particular birth chart of Ramadev. Shri Ramaji was born when, as you said, the sun in Aries, Mars in Capricorn, Saturn in Libra, Moon in Pisces, Jupiter in Cancer. This is his birth chart. It looks beautiful, and whoever have this kind of locations of the planets, his life will be like Ramachandra. Only problem here, the reason I had to draw this and study that when you read it, it's fine. But when you put it graphically and when you give a touch of astrology to this, then one thing you clearly see this. Here one thing you see is the Saturn, the Mars and the Sun. These three planets are malefic. Although Ramachandra was Supreme Personality of Godhead, the planets are designed so that they will help the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Ramachandra didn't want any favor from anybody. He could have easily asked the death personification, Yamaraja, that until I come back after 14 years, let my father live. But he didn't do that. No. He didn't want to go into business of the whole structure is designed. He says, they are given the job, let them do their work. So these three planets who are malefic, nature of them is, although everything is fine with Ramachandraji, but his marital life will be in trouble. In achieving hand of Mother Sita, he had to go through tests, right? As soon as he brought it to Ayodhya, the next morning they were exiled, right? They were banished. They spanned in middle of nowhere. There was no society and no life whatsoever except the birds and beasts. They had to spend the time there. The family life became miserable. And ultimately, Ravana kidnapped his wife and they were separated. And when she came back and got pregnant, right away he had to give her up. So, this marital problem, according to the astrology, is there. And that's why I plotted that when you read this kind of description, you don't know. But Valmiki Ramayana has given a tremendous push towards astrology and astronomy. So there are so many research is going on. The next step in this thing is there is a chart of 225 boxes in which is known as a Rama Prashnavali. The Ramayana has given us Ram Prashnavali. You draw 225 boxes and then all these alphabets that you have, in whichever way, whatever you are speaking, what you could possibly speak, put those things randomly, which is already given, the location of it. And then it can give you the exact answer of what you call any question that you may have. It's giving. Srila Prabhupada is actually writing about this astronomy that we are talking about. Srila Prabhupada says, astronomical calculations of stellar influences upon a living being are not suppositions, but are factual. These are the words of Srila Prabhupada. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, every living being is controlled by laws of nature at every minute. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, every action of the body produces another reaction which is binding upon us. The law of nature is so subtle that every part of our body is influenced by respective stars. A man's destiny is therefore ascertained by birth time, constellation of stars, and the factual horoscope is made by learned astrologer. It is a great science. So we are within the boundary, but Srila Prabhupada is doing. So far as that Rama Prashnavali is that my curiosity could not stop. So I plotted all those 225 boxes and I questioned that I don't have a problem, but someone who has marital problem, how can we help? And the answer came from Ramayana. And Srila Prabhupada has already given the answer to that. And what is that answer? Yat pada pallavayugam vinidhaya kumbha dvandve pranama samayesa ganadhiraj vignana vihantam alam asya jagatrayasya govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Asking in Rama Prashnavali, the recommendation, the astrological recommendation says that you should chant this particular verse of Brahma Samhita. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda. Ganesha always holds his lotus feet upon the pair of thumuli protruding from his elephant head in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds. So simply by chanting this particular verse of Brahma Samhita, you can always get rid of your marital problem. That may help some of us. So we were just looking at this birth of Ramachandra, that a full year after the sacrifice, when the star Punarvasu was ascended in the sun was in Aries, Mars was in Capricorn, Saturn was in Libra, Jupiter was in Cancer, and Moon was in Pisces. The eldest of Dashrath's queens, Kaushalya, gave birth to Lord Ramachandra, who was the Lord of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, himself Lord Vishnu. Rama, the greatest descendant in the line of King Ikshvaku, was endowed with all auspicious divine markings. His eyes were tinged with red, and his full lips were also red. His long arms extended down to his knees, and the symbol of Vishnu, the lotus, conch, thunderbolt, and other markings could be seen on the palms of his hands and the soles of his feet. King Dashrath's next son, named Bharata, took birth from the womb of Queen Kaikeyi. Being a manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bharata also possessed great strength. After Bharata's birth, Queen Sumitra gave birth to Lakshmana and Shatrughna, who were also expansion of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Upon the birth of Lord Rama, all the demigods in heavenly planets began singing and playing musical instruments. The heavenly Apsaras danced, and all Gandharvas, Siddhas, Kinnaras and Vidyadharas assembled in the sky to offer prayers to the Lord and shower the earth with flowers. Everyone in Ayodhya rejoiced at the appearance of Lord Ramachandra. Many people danced and chanted, and everyone felt jubilant. All the roads leading to Ayodhya were filled with sweet songs, and King Dashrath, being very pleased, performed a splendorous name-giving ceremony for his wonderful son. So this is the sanskara, sacraments, that name-giving ceremony is mentioned here. Giving mounds of brilliant jewels, thousands of cows, and many other valuable gifts to the Brahmanas. The priest Vasishtha Muni performed all the purificatory ceremonies for the four divine boys, Rama, Bharat, Lakshman, and Shatrughna. In due course, other ceremonies, from the bestowal of names to the presentation of sacred thread, Brahmanical thread will be given, and were performed by Vasishtha Muni. Very soon, King Dashrath's four illustrious son became master of the Vedas and heroes intent on benefiting everyone. Lord Rama was very expert at chariot fighting and riding elephants and horses. His special love, however, was archery. In all ways, he was specially devoted to his father's service. Lord Rama's younger brother Lakshmana was deeply attached to Rama and tried to satisfy him every way. Rama loved Lakshmana so much that he could not even sleep without him, nor would Rama eat when his younger brother was not present. Whenever Lord Rama went riding on the horseback or took out a chariot, Lakshmana was with him, guarding him on all sides. Just as Lakshmana served Rama, Shatrughna served Bharata, and in this way the four sons were inseparable and very dear to one another. Seeing their excellent qualities, King Dashrath was extremely delighted. Indeed, the four boys always dwelt in core of his heart. So, this way, you can see, keep your eyes on the altar. The offering was offered for the benefit of our sponsors of this reading. Without their help, this would not have happened. तत्र कामाश्रमे रम्य कानने मुनिसङ्कुले उषित्वा रजनीमेकां प्रभाते प्रस्थिता शनैः. Now we have a choice either we can witness the Aarti. Yesterday I was in that mood and I could not stop reading. Somehow I missed it. But if you want, we can chant the Aarti and then we can come back for the reading. So pretty soon we'll be offering the Aarti. We ask our sponsors that please, if you have and if you want, keep one incense, a small ghee lamp, little water, handkerchief, flower or flower petal, doesn't matter. And if you have something to fan, chamar, or a conch shell you can blow, you can follow the pujari the way she is doing. We can always offer this to Radha Govinda. Wherever we do the reading and whenever you are watching on YouTube, in your cell phone, Radha Govinda is there. On your laptop, Radha Govinda is there. If you have a television or some kind of mechanism which enlarges the pictures, Radha Govinda is there. And since they are in your home, in your palm, if you cannot do it physically with all those paraphernalias, at least you can do it in your mind, which is a mansik seva, and Krishna will, without any discrimination, accept your manasik seva or a service, devotional service done in your mind. So please be prepared for that. Meanwhile, what happened at once, when the education of King Dashrath's four sons was nearing completion, at that time, the Vishwamitra, the most powerful of Brahmanas, arrived at the palace. King Dashratha happily welcomed him and offered him a high honored seat. After washing the sage's feet, the king humbly said, O greatest of Brahmanas, I am pleased to receive you. Whatever your desire may be, I will try to fulfill it. I am the king of the earth, and I can fulfill the desires of man. Pleased by these sweet words, Vishwamitra replied, What you have said, O king, is certainly worthy of you. No one else could make such an offer. Therefore, I have a request. So now we'll be coming back where we left, but let's chant Aarti. Shri Radha Govinda Deva ki jai. So keep your eyes on Pujari. That's the reason we are live streaming, so that you can also offer Aarti at your place. Whenever she is offering incense, you offer incense. When she is offering the ghee lamp, you should offer ghee lamp. And Aarti will be sung. And if you know these words, you can also sing your Aarti or ask someone who is present at your altar. Ki bajayo jaya Gaura Chande Aarti ko shobha. Ki bajaya jaya Gaura Chande Aarti ko shobha. Jhanvi Tatvan Jagman Loba. Jhanvi Tatvan Jagman Loba. Dakshin Nitai Chat Mam Gadadharam. Dakshin Nitai Chat Mam Gadadharam. Nikate Advaita Shri Vasichatridara. Nikate Advaita Shri Vasichatridara. বসি আছে গৌরাচন রত্ন সিংহাসন বসি আছে গৌরাচন রত্ন সিংহাসন आरती करें ब्रह्मा आदिदेव गाने आरती करें ब्रह्मा आदिदेव गाने नरहरि आदि कोरी चामर दुलाय नरहरि आदि कोरी चामर दुलाय संजय मुकुंद बासु घोष आदि गाय संजय मुकुंद बासु घोष आदि गाय शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे बाज करताल शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे बाज करताल मधुर मृदंगा बाजे परम रसाला मधुर मृदंगा बाजे परम रसाला शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे मधुर 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 बाजे शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे मधुर 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 बाजे मधुर 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 बाजे मधुर 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 भाग्य हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल बहु कोटि चंद्र जिनी वदन उज्ज्वल बहु कोटि चंद्र जिनी वदन उज्ज्वल गल देशे वनमाला हरे जलमाला गल देशे वनमाला जलमाला शिव शुक नारद ब्रह्म गदागदं शिव शुक नारद ब्रह्म गदागदं भक्ति विनोद देखे गौरार संपदा भक्ति विनोद देखे गौरार संपदा शिव जय जय गौराचंद्र आरती को शोभम जानवी तटवन जगमन लोबा जानवी तटवन जगमन लोबा हरे कृष्ण Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hariharaya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namah, Hariharaya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namah, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshuvaya Namah, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshuvaya Namah. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan, Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madan Mohan, Giridhari Gopinath Madan Mohan. Shri Chaitanya Nityanand Shri Advaita Sita, Shri Chaitanya Nityanand Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavat Gita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavat Gita. Shri Rup Shri Sanatan Bhatt Raghunath, Shri Rup Shri Sanatan Bhatt Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatt Das Raghunath, श्रीजीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ। यही चाय गोसार कोरी चरण वंदना। यही चाय गोसाए कोरे चरण वंदना। यावत विघ्न नाश अभिष्ट पुराण। यावत विघ्न नाश अभिष्ट पुराण। यही चाहे गोसाए यार मुई तार दास। यही चाहे गोसाए यार मुई तार दास। तन सब्र पाद रेणु मोरा पंचग्रास। तारा सब्र पाद रेणु मोरा सब्र रास। हरि आय नम कृष्ण यादवाय नमः। हरि आय नम कृष्ण यादवाय नमः। यादवाय माधवाय केशवाय नमः। यादवाय माधवाय केशवाय नमः। जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राधे। जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राधे। जय गौरानिताय 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 जय गौरानिताय। जय गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन। जय गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय प्रभुपदा 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 जय प्रभुपदा। प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। नमस्ते नरसिंहाय। नमस्ते नरसिंहाय। प्रहलाद लाद दाइन। हिरण्यकशिपूर्वक्षान् शिलटङ्कान् खारायन्। हितो नृसिंहं परितो नृसिंहम्। यतो यतो मिततो नृसिंहम्। बहिर्नृसिंहो हृदये नृसिंहम्। नरसिंहां गतिं शरणं प्रपद्ये। तव कर कमल वरे नखां अद्भुत श्रृंगार। दालिता हिरण्यकशिपु तानुभृंगा। केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा। जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे। जय नृसिंहदेव 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 जय नृसिंहदेव। जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज। प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय। भक्त प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नमो विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवर्गाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सता भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कौशिक चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। अंतर्द्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। समावेद भक्त वृंद की जय। गौ प्रेमानंदे all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Guru and Gauranga. श्री राधा गोविंद देव की। So we will continue to read where we left off, and we were reading about visit by Vishwamitra. Brahmagno gurutalpagopi purusha steyi surapopi va Bhratrur matruvisankakopi satatam Bhoge kabadatura Nityam stotramidam chapan raghupatim Bhaktyarudistham smaran Dhyayan muktimupaiti kim punaraso Swacharayukto naraha. Vishwamitro atam tapraha Raghavam sa Lakshmanam Gacchamo vatsamithilam Janakena vipalitam. Pleased by the sweet words, Vishwamitra replied, "What you have just said, O king, is certainly worthy of you. No one else could make such an offer. Therefore, I have a request. In the forest near my ashram live two Rakshasas named Maricha and Subahu. These demons are capable of assuming any form at will. With their demonic associates, they interrupt all our sacrifices and even desecrate the altar by dropping flesh and blood from the sky. Because of this, I have left my ashram out of frustration. O tiger among kings, please allow your eldest and most heroic son, Shri Ram, to help me. Although he is only a boy, he possesses true greatness. By his own spiritual prowess and with my protection, he can exterminate all of the Rakshasas. Indeed, I will bestow benedictions by which he will attain universal fame. No one but Sri Rama can kill the demon Marisha and Subahu, who are very proud of their power. If you send Rama, they will surely be caught in the noose of the death. Please do not allow your parental affection to interfere. Do not worry, consider demons already killed by Rama. Dear king, please be merciful and preserve the sanctity of my sacrifices. If you do so, I assure you of all good fortune." King Dasharatha was stunned by these words. After regaining his composure, he said, "O great sage, my son Rama is not yet 16 years old. I cannot understand how you expect him to vanquish the powerful Rakshasas. Instead, I will give you my army consisting of the entire Akshonini. Moreover, I will personally march with them and fight the Rakshasas. All my soldiers are most valiant and powerful, skilled in the use of weapons. They can easily destroy legions of demons. In any case, please do not take away my son Rama. I myself will go with bow and hand and fight in the front line. Consider that Rama is still a child, untrained in science of warfare. He cannot even estimate the strength or weakness of an army, nor he properly equipped with weapons. He is certainly no match for powerful, experienced Rakshasas. O great sage, I would surely die if separated from Ram, even for an hour. Please therefore withdraw this request. I will deal with the Rakshasa myself if you just tell me who they are and whose orders they follow. When Vishwamitra so angrily reproaches Dashrath, earth trembled and fear agitated all the demigods. Upon hearing these words, Vishwamitra was really very angry because, as such, he was a very short tempered sage anyway. So, seeing the entire world alarmed, the wise sage Vasistha offered his advice. So, when this happened, Vasistha Muni was there and he thought, I must take care of the situation. So he is asking Dashrath, my dear king, your majesty should not abandon the path of righteousness. If you fail to keep your promise, you will lose all the credit you have earned through sacrifice. Therefore, please send Rama with him. Be confident that Rakshasas will not overpower your son, whether he may master archery or no. After all, since he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, no one can defeat him. So, pacified by these words, King Dashrath agreed to send Sri Ram to kill Rakshasas Marisha and Subahu. Rama and Lakshmana thus followed Vishwamitra out of Ayodhya to his ashram. As they walked along the river Saryu, the sage told them that the pious river created from Brahma's mind flowed through heavenly planets and eventually reached the earth and encircled city of Ayodhya. As they journeyed further, they arrived at a forest where vultures and fierce beasts of prey shrieked harshly. Upon seeing the savage birds and animals, Lord Rama asked, why is this forest so frightful? Once this forest was a holy tract of land, but now a Yaksha woman named Taraka inhabits it, said Vishwamitra. She has the strength of 1,000 elephants and can assume any form at will. Taraka's son is great Rakshasa Marish, who is endowed with mystic powers and strength of Lord Indra. Like his mother, Marish can assume many forms. Being evil, Taraka constantly harasses the great sages. Because of her, no one dares enter this forest. O Son of Raghu, please use the strength of your mighty arms to kill the Rakshasi. Upon hearing the orders of his spiritual master, Lord Rama, who could kill any enemy, resolved to carry out his duty. Clutching his bow with his left hand, he produced a sharp twang, which resounded throughout the forest. When the Rakshasas heard this, they were terrified, but deformed and ugly Taraka became overwhelmed with anger and rushed towards the sound. As she approached them, Rama turned to Lakshmana. Behold this great and frightful Yaksha, named Taraka. He said, she is so horrible that pious hearts break at the very sight of her. Today, I will terminate her power by severing her hands, feet, nose and ears. Thus multitude, she will not commit further inquiries. As Ram spoke, Tarka began her attack, waving her arms and roaring, using her mystic powers. She covered Ram and Lakshman with a cloud of dust and showered them with rocks. Although Lord Rama severed the Rakshasi's arms with his golden arrows, she continued to advance. Lakshmana then shot arrows that cut off her ears and nose. Multitude by the sons of King Dashrath, Taraka became furious, assumed numerous forms, and then disappeared. Ascending high into air, she created further mystic illusions and threw rocks at huge as boulders at the two brothers. Seeing the Rakshasi moving above the sky, Vishwamitra said, "O Ram, this sinful Yaksha woman is very adept at conjuring. Since twilight is fast approaching and Rakshasas difficult to overcome in dark, you should immediately dispatch this demoness to the abode of Yamaraj." As Vishwamitra spoke, Tarka, aided by all her mystic powers, roared loudly and lunged towards Lord Rama. The Lord then released a golden arrow which pierced her breast. Although she was rushing towards the speed of Indra's thunderbolt, the arrow stopped the hideous Rakshasi and she fell to the ground dead. From the heavens the demigods applauded and threw down thousands of flowers. The Gandharvas and Apsaras began to sing and dance in ecstasy, and great rishis praised the prowesses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. O Ram, let us spend the night here, said Vishwamitra. At the sunrise, we will continue towards my ashram. Pleased to hear the words of his spiritual master, Lord Rama, who is himself the spiritual master of everyone, spent that night happily within the forest. Now here, very interesting pastime is there. And millions of years passed since this Ram Katha. But pastimes continues one or the other way. If you go to Tirupati, they sing a Mangala Arti. Uttishta Uttishta Govinda, Uttishta Garuda-dhwaja, Uttishta Kamalakanta, Trailokyam Mangalam Kuru. The Mangala Arti has the words of Lord Ramachandra, Dashrath and Kaushalya. The prayers are directed towards Lord Sri Rama. That prayer was sung by Vishwamitra Muni, because the next morning, after spending a night right there in that particular forest, Vishwamitra is looking at these tired two boys who are sleeping and snoring, and is asking them to rise. O son of Dashrath and Kaushalya, please rise. Without you, the whole world is inauspicious. Trailokyam Mangalam Kuru. If you rise, this particular universe will be auspicious again. So please, do not sleep anymore. Please wake up. This is how he is waking up Lord Rama and Lakshmana. So, in Tirupati, they still sing this Arti, every Mangala Arti, thinking of Lord Rama and asking him to wake up at this moment. Beautiful. Due to the Lord's presence, the forest became a beautiful place of pilgrimage that attracted great sages and rishis. Wherever the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees walk, the ground becomes as holy as the eternal kingdom of God. Because God is Supreme Person and the Supreme Spirit, everything related to Him is spiritual in all respects. There is no difference between the Lord and His name, His abode, His paraphernalia, or anything connected to Him. Even today, the holy places where the Lord appeared are visited by millions of devotees. Many choose to give up all worldly possessions and reside there, depending solely on the mercy of the Lord and meditating on His transcendental activities. Of course, it's not necessary to seek some remote place of pilgrimage to contact the Lord. As soon as we surrender to Krishna and keep Him in our heart, we become ourselves a walking place of pilgrimage. Similarly, when we install the deity of the Lord on the altar, the temple becomes place of pilgrimage. And when we establish a community or ashram solely dedicated to the glorification of the Lord, that place becomes non-different from Goloka Vrindavan, the Lord's original abode. In such a place, we can remain free from fear and anxiety, being like Lord Rama under the protection of the spiritual master. The only condition is, which every devotee should know, and unfortunately no one knows, that out of the temple you can play whatever nonsense you want, no problem. But as soon as you step in the temple room, nothing will be accepted. It's very offensive sometimes not to follow the rules of the temple. So, Scripture says that you may have millions of offenses outside the temple. When you visit the temple, that time those offenses will be forgiven by Srila Prabhupada and Radha Krishna. But it could be a very smallest possible offense, but any offense you commit within this temple premises, no one can forgive you, even Krishna himself. So you have to bear this injection in your mind. The next morning, Vishwamitra, Lord Rama, and Lakshmana continued their journey. When they finally arrived at ashrama, they were greeted by an assembly of sages. Lord Rama inquired about their welfare and then asked when they expected Marish and Subahu to pollute their sacrifice. O Prince, from this moment on, you should stand guard continuously for 6 days and nights. The sages said, Vishwamitra himself will conduct the sacrifice and observe silence for the duration. Lakshmana and Lord Rama decided not to sleep for 6 days and nights. They stayed very close to Vishwamitra Muni and guarded the sacrificial area. On the 6th night, toward the end of the sacrifice, it was time to extract the soma juice. Vishwamitra sat in front of the sacrificial fire. On the altar, which was heaped with firewood and flowers, were placed kusha grass and chamara, a wooden vessel for drinking the soma. The sacrifice proceeded according to Vedic ritual, and the sages recited mantras for avahana. So, just checking whether we are going to have time to finish this particular pastime. The sacrifice proceeded according to Vedic rituals, and the sages recited mantras from the Atharva Veda, Yajurveda, Rigveda, and Samaveda. Suddenly a shrill noise filled the sky as Marich and Subahu, followed by other Rakshasas, swooped down upon the altar and defiled it with torrent of blood, flesh, pus, and the torsos of multitude man. Saying, the altar drenched with blood, Lord Rama turned to Lakshmana and said, watch me scatter these flesh-eating Rakshasas with the Manavatsra arrow directed by Swayambhu Manu. So this particular arrow was given by Manu. Just as the wind disperses clouds, I will rout these demons, because they have been destined by their fate to survive for many years. I do not feel inclined to kill them all. Lord Rama did it with bow with an effulgent arrow presided over by Manu. When the arrow was released, it hit the demon Maricha in the chest so hard that he was struck senseless and flung 800 miles distance somewhere in mid-ocean. So Maricha was thrown 800 miles away. And if you know the place Mauritius, that is where his body fell. He didn't die, but he was thrown all the way up to Mauritius. So from Marish comes Mauritius, the whole country. Still they worship Lord Ramachandra. And there are places where they prove that this is where this demon used to live and hiding from Lord Rama. So these are the pastimes. O Lakshmana, said Lord Rama, just see how the power of Manu's arrow has propelled this demon such a distance. Now I will get rid of this other blood-sucking Rakshasas, who is also merciless and wicked. Lord Rama then shot an arrow presided over by Agni, the fire god. When this arrow pierced the heart of Subahu, the demon fell to the ground dead. With an arrow presided over by Vayu, the wind god, Lord Rama scattered the rest of the Rakshasas, hurling them a great distance. Overjoyed at this, the sages and rishis praised the Lord for his glorious and uncommon exploits. That very pleasure experienced by the sages, a pleasure that ends all material miseries, can be enjoyed today by all who attentively hear and glorify these wonderful superhuman pastimes of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra. So, finally, we were able to look into some of the pastimes of Lord Sri Ramachandra. That was his mission. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirvhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmyanam srujamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So with this, we try to wind up our pastimes of Lord Ramachandra for today. Tomorrow we'll continue to read more about pastimes. Thanks for your patience, and I hope you're enjoying presence of Lord Hanuman, Ramchandra ji, and all the sages, his names, his forms, his qualities, and different pastimes. Please continue to listen these 9 days. In Ramayana it says that if you hear this for 9 days, you do not remain the same person. If you want to remain the same person, if you are happy with your condition, it's okay. You don't have to listen to these pastimes. But if you do for continuously 9 days, and also attend the function that we have on 21st of April, which is Ram Navami, the appearance day of Lord Rama. We will be really celebrating this pastimes of Lord Rama, his appearance on that day. Most of the people who read Ramayana or Ram Katha, recite Ramayana, what they do is they celebrate the day they read about Ram Janma. Today, we actually read about Ram Janma and we learn everything about Ram Janma, but still we did not do any celebration. Due to the pandemics, people are not coming. Couple of people may just come for prasadam, may go away, but that doesn't help us much. So please try to be there on 21st of April when there is a Ram Navami celebration, and we will have the whole day celebration for you. Keep reading our mail, keep reading our newsletters, and meanwhile, God be with you and your family. Stay safe, and please try to memorize whatever we are reading. You have already heard about all these things, but what we are trying to do is to inject Srimad Bhagavatam also. In Ramayana there is no Srimad Bhagavatam, but in Srimad Bhagavatam the portion of the Ramayana is there. So we are trying to use Srimad Bhagavatam as a base, and that's the beauty of this reading. No one ever did this before. Either they read Srimad Bhagavat or they read Ramayana. But what we do is we are reading Ramayana, although we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's the beauty of it. So tomorrow at 5 o'clock we'll see you again, and please bless us. We need your blessings, we need your support, and it would be really good if you can sponsor the reading. That way our Radha Govinda temple, as you see, offering Aarti 6 times a day, starting from 4 o'clock in the morning all the way up to 9 o'clock. You see services going behind the curtain, and pujaris are working day and night, 24 hours a day. So please try to be with us, try to help, sponsor the reading. And Mataji is here, so she is going to help us in closing the show. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha Govinda Deva ki